men and women. We'll soon see the Gemara makes no difference between men and women. But since it's a ner ish ubeisai type of mitzvah, you have an option. Either you could be yaitz of the mitzvah ner ish ubeisai, like Sfardim do ad hayoim, or you could choose to be a mahadrin, which according to the Minig Ashkenaz is each man lights. Why taka this mitzvah is ner ish ubeisai? Matzah is not ner ish ubeisai. So this is the question that Pnei Yeshua in that sugya asks. He asks, Manishtana, ner Chanukah is a chayvas haguf. It's a chayv in every person. Why do we say one person is moitzi them all? What happened to the mitzvah yoisem b'shluchai? Says the Pnei Yeshua that since the mitzvah is done by the Pesach Habayis, ki'ilu hu chayvas Habayis, Chazal made it basically a home-related mitzvah. But you have two options. You could be yaitze with the Rosh Habayis, or you could do your own, like the minig of Ashkenazim. Now we have a different question. So how about this question? There's an almana that lives downstairs. Her children live far away. She's basically alone. Every Matzah Shabbos, she comes to your house for Havdalah. And Chams Chanukah, she knocks on the door, I want to listen to you on Ner Chanukah. Is a woman who doesn't live by you yaitzi Ner Chanukah because she's there? Should we say if it's good for Havdalah, it's good for Ner Chanukah? And now that we learned Ner Ishu Beisai, that might have some merit because she's part of, right now she's in your house. But this is definitely not true. Because the Gemara a little later, Daf Chav Gimel, Amr Rav Sheishes Achsanoi, which means that an Oireach is a guest. A guest is Chayev B'Ner Chanukah. This woman, this almana, can be yaitz Havdalah, but she can't be yaitz Ner Chanukah. She's a guest. Now the question is, why is that? If she comes to you for the Suda, so theoretically she could be yaitz with your Hadlaka of Ner Shabbos. So why, all of a sudden, when it comes to Ner Chanukah, she's not yaitza? I saw the Chayvas Hadar in Hilchas Ner Shabbos, Sifkatan Lamed Tesed Beferish. If someone comes to you just for the Friday night Suda, technically they're yaitza Ner Shabbos with you. They can light it home if they want. So now the question is, Achsanoi, a guest is Chayv in Ner Chanukah, Manishtan Ner Chanukah from Ner Shabbos. So the Rosh on this Gemara, Siman Ches, says key crucial words. To be part of Ner Ish Ubeisai, it has to be part of Beisai. Beisai means not just eating with you or being with you. Beisai is your family, your household. Not just whoever's in attendance. Havdalah, whoever listens, Shemei Koina. But Ner Ish Ubeisai is part of your family. We'll soon see extended family, if you have someone staying with you for an extended time. But as the Pri Megadim puts it, in Tafresh Ayin Zayin Gimel Delaytema Kivan Sha'oichel Al Shulchan Balabayis Kibene Beisadami, and it's enough with Ner Echad Kamash Melon. If you're not part of this family, you cannot be yaitz with their Ner Chanukah. And the Chayvas Hadar explains. He says when it comes to Ner Shabbos, it's totally in Makam Achila. I guess the pshat is Shalom Bayis, Kavod Shabbos, Oynik Shabbos, all those reasons. So as long as you're enjoying it, you have it. But Ner Chanukah is a Ner Ishu Beisai. This almana has her own bias. She lives downstairs. And therefore she has to light. Oh, we're not yet finished. Here we come to probably the ikar of today, which is very unique to Ner Chanukah. Let me read you the next words of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Zev, Meireish, originally, Ki Avavina Beirav, when I was in yeshiva, and he was away from home, Mishtatafna Bepriti Bahade Ushpiza. So apparently, Rabbi Zera did not live permanently by someone else. He was away from his own family. We'll soon see some say he was a Yasim, didn't have family. But basically, he was on his own. Zok Gemara, when he was a Bacha on his own, he would be Mishtativ Bepruta. Now this is the big sugya, which is a share for itself, which is not for today. But basically, what we see from this Gemara is, if someone has a Chiyav Gama, he's an Oireach, and he's mechuyev to light. He's mechuyev to light. But there's an option. If you're a guest by someone, be mishtativ bepruta, and halacha, you don't need to give the value of the ner. Just give a shava kesef, something of value. If you contribute to the Neiros, you become like Bnei Abayis. So here we see when there is a chiyuv to light, and you're a guest, you can't walk off the street and give a penny. If you're a guest by someone, even though you have a chiyuv, but if you contribute to the Neiros, and the person is allowed after you have to give money, the balabas could be makna to you. But if you have a piece of the Neiros, you're yaitza. Okay, this is rarely done, because Baruch Hashem, we all have Neiros, but there's always the option of mishtate bepruta. But what's important to us is the next words. Basa the nesive itisa, after he got married, so he got married, but he went back to yeshiva. He was like a bacha with a wife, but he was back in yeshiva. So, and Rashi do pam shayisi achsanoi lil my Torah, and as he got married, and he went back to the same scenario, he was a guest. Amina hashta vadelay tzarichna. Now, I am so, like I said in America, I'm so good to go, I am so yaitza, I don't even have to mishtat the bepruta. He's a achsanoi, and not even a pruta. The kamadliki alai begav beisoy. Rashi says, my wife is lighting, and therefore I'm yaitza. Now, this is hard to understand. If his wife makes havdalah, is he yaitza? If he's miles away? If his wife puts a mezuzah on her door, on their door, is he yaitza in his dorm room? What does that mean? Long distance, Ner Chanukah? He's not even there. And so much so to the extent that he doesn't have to give a pruta. And the bigger kasha is, I'm sure Rabbi Zev was a stick malach, he was firmer than us. And if he was yaitza, so why can he light anyhow? Al Mahadrin, our little children do it. Rabbi Zev was less than them. So maybe you'll say Rabbi Zev was a Sephardi. I don't know, I don't remember him. Maybe he's a Sephardi. Maybe he couldn't afford it. In those days it was very expensive. People didn't have much. Or maybe, as we'll soon see, this is the incredible chiddush of Ishtay Kegufay. Part of Ner Ishu Beisai, which the focus is on Beisai, on household, on family, maybe this is the chiddush of Ner Chanukah. Havdalah, you have to be there. Mezuzah has to be on the doorpost. But this seems to be the uniqueness of Ner Chanukah, that Ner Chanukah is a Beisai mitzvah, and therefore the Mishnah Berurah says this based on Gedolei Achrayim in Tafresh Ayin Aleph Sif Katan Tes, where the Ramah says the Minig Ashkenazim is that all sons light, but Ishtay does not light because Ishtay Kegufay. Now this is based on a Marshal, El Yerabah, Pri Megadim, and Pri Megadim Daik from Rashi, that even like the Minig of Mahadrin, that every boy lights, the wife doesn't light. Now, this, of course, needs hezbollah. If the husband eats matzah, the wife's not yotzah. And certainly if the wife eats matzah, the husband's not yotzah. So why is Ner Chanukah different? But I'll tell you something. The Aruch HaShulchan in Tafresh Ayin Zayin Gimel says that, the Magen Avram says that even though a man is yotzah with his wife, but better he should light, als mitzvah yotzah mi b'shluchay. Like everything other mitzvah, do it yourself. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, I don't understand this. Rabbi Zev wasn't Yoitza Mitzvah boy. The teretz is Ner Chanukah has this unique feature that Ishtay Kegufay. Not only are you Yoitza long distance, but it's as if he did it. If he did it, he also has Mahadrin. And I'll just show you Ad Heichan Advar Magiyim. The Magen Avram discusses this, but the Mishnah Berurah and Tafresh Ayin Vav Sif Katan Zayin Paskins like this. Let's say it happens quite often. The man, for some reason, was unable to light the first night. Lamashal, he had a flight. Someone asked me just Friday the Shaila. They're leaving before Plaga Mincha today, leaving 2 o'clock from the house today. And they're flying a whole night, and again, they're Yisrael. It's already too late to light. And the man is distraught, beyond words. I'm not going to light the first night. So the Eitzah will soon see the simple Eitzah is, the Eitzah, let his wife light. The question is, the second night of Chanukah, when he lights, does he make a Shechiyanu? For him, this is news. So the Magen Avram and its Mishnah Berurah Paskins, no. Because he was Yotzah the first night with the Shechiyanu. Now, he was miles and miles away from his bias, but that's the Chiddush of Ner Ishu Beisai with its added feature that we say, Ishtay Kegufa. So we have basically 4 levels, if you want, in Ner Chanukah, doing it yourself. we have the wife being part of the husband, Ishtay Kegufay. Then we have B'nai Beisay. Now the sons and daughters are Yaitse with the father. But the sons, our Ashkenazis sons, we light our own because there's no Avi Kegufay. So the sons have Mahadrin, and then we have the Achsanoi, which means basically he's not part of the household, and he has to either light, or if he really needs to, he can be Yaitse Mishtat Bepruta. Now to apply this Lamais, I'm trying to organize it in various categories, but basically, we'll start with Nashim because these are the most shilas. Nashim have the identical Chiyav Ner Chanukah like men. There's nothing to talk about. The Gemara says, the Lashon of the Gemara, and very clear in Daf Chav Gimel, Isha Vade Madlika. The Amr Shua Ben Levi, Nashim Chayabais B'Ner Chanukah She'af Hein Hayu B'Oisaynes. In other words, a sukkah and lulav and shayfa Nashim Apata. But Ner Chanukah, the Mechaber Tov Reish Ayin Hey Gimel says this, Nashim have the identical Chiyav of Ner Chanukah like men. And the biggest raya is Rebbetzin Zera, if that's her name. She was Moitzi, her husband. Had there been any less of a Chiyav heart to him, how could she be Moitzi him? The Teretz says there's no doubt about it, women are Chayiv like men. Our Nashim do not light. The Teretz is like I told you. They are Yaitse Nerish Ubeisa, and according to the Marshal, Early Rabbah, Pri Megadim, they even have the concept of the Mahadrim. I should mention the Shar Ephraim and Simon Membeis asked this for a kasha. Why don't women light L'didan that we have Mahadrin? But that's not the minig. So Pashut will say the women did light with this new feature of Ishtay Kegufay. There is a word from the Chasam Sofer in Shabbos Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, a heilige word. Chasam Sofer says that really in the times of Chazal, they lit outside. So even though there was an inyan of Mahadrin, but it was inappropriate for an Isha to stand outside with Ne'am Ve'ed and light. So therefore, he says, originally when they were Masakin Mahadrin, it did not include women. Because again, it's unbecoming for a woman to stay in the street and light Ner Chanukah. So Chasam Sofer, even though now we light indoors, and many people light by the door, not even by the window so no one sees, but this original takana did not include women for Mahadrin because of the tznius factor. In other words, the women are being mahader in tznius, so that's their hiddur. So that would explain also why women don't have even mahadrin. Now, but hu adin, it should be understood that let's say there's no husband, or the husband is not lighting for whatever reason, so the wife, of course, should light. Now, the women have an aversion, as we know, to make havdalah. Okay, that's in the Ramah. Women should try to avoid making havdalah. But there's no shaykhis to Ner Chanukah. Women are chayiv, the identical chayiv like men. If an Isha times of Chazal had no husband, she would have to go in the street all night. There would be no prayer. But basically, the women are included either als Ishtay Kegufay, or as we said, they hidder in tznius. In an atypical case that the husband lit, and then the wife decides, you know what, I want to do it myself. I eat my own matzah. I want to light Ner Chanukah after you. So that's wrong, because she was ready Yaitse. So it's a bracha levatala. If she hasn't had in mind not to be Yaitse with her husband, and then she wants to light, so Pashtus, and I stress Pashtus, you'll soon see why, Pashtus she could, but I don't advise it. It's not conducive for Shalom Bayis. What's wrong with your husband? It's not done and shouldn't be done. If she's a big lamdin, she'll light before the husband. Then there's no shayl in the world that she has a chiyuv. But again, the Shalom Bayis is something to consider. But basically, if a Isha wants to light first, Avada she has a regular chiyuv, and there's absolutely no reservations about it. Lighting after the husband, will soon see another problem, because maybe even Das won't help not to be yaitz with her husband. But basically, the women should know they're not being deprived, they're not being cheated, they're not getting a raw deal. They have equal rights. The equal rights is Ishtay Kegufay, is as if they lit. The big question is on our girls today. Our girls today, those that light, so like I can understand why single girls light, because there's no avia kegufa, and they want to be mahajim. So those families that the girls light, it's basically the regular mahajim like their brothers. In those homes that girls don't light, single girls don't light, the stakakasha. What about mahajim? And the answer is that chsam soifa. In that family, the minig of mahajim is regarding tznius. So each minig has the makar and halacha. either mahadrin in their Chanukah or mahadrin in Tznius. A question which could come up, the wife is in a hospital. Let's talk about a good wife. The wife had a baby, and she's unable to light, and she can't get home, and she feels terrible, she's missing their Chanukah. So you tell her, you're as good as Rabbi Zev. Rabbi Zev did not light, he was yaitz with his wife, you'll be yaitz with your husband. So that's the basic yesod. But there's one point that must be mentioned. I think it's an oversight when we make our cheshbonis in the halacha. The Gemara says in Shabbos Chav Gimel, again this is another unique feature of Ner Chanukah. Says the Gemara, Hamadik Ner Chanukah tzarich levarich. There are three brachas, like the Gemara explains, when you light the first night. Haroya Ner Chanukah, if you're not lighting, you're just looking at a Ner Chanukah, you make two brachas of the Gemara. Shasanisim and Shechiyanu. In other words, there are two options. Either if you light, three brachas, if you see the Ner, two brachas. Now, this is strange. What is this? When does this apply? Making two brachas when I look at the Neris? When I light Neris and I go to learn, I have to make another bracha? So Rashi says, no. So Rashi, if you didn't yet light, and the way the Mordechai adds to Rashi, if you will light, or you did light, either way, either you lit already, or you are asid lahadlik, then you don't make a bracha zaraya. In other words, it's a choice. If you lit already or will light, then you yaitz with your brachas. If you didn't light yet and are not asid lahadlik, then you have to make at least two brachas the first night and one bracha every other night. Now, here we're wondering, okay, so if I will light later, I don't make a bracha zaraya. But my wife and my daughters who don't light at all tonight, they're yaitz with me, do they make berachas haraya? So most Rishonim, the Rashba, the Ran say, what the Gemara means is someone that is not yaitz at all that night. Someone Nebuch is homeless, he has no home, he's not lighting, and he's not mechuyev to light, like many shittas, without a home. But, as the Bach explained in Tafresh Ayin Zayin, what about the mitzvah of Haidal Anes? You have a chiyuv Haidal Anes. If you can't light Ner Chanukah, you're an Anes. But Haidal Anes, so according to most Rishonim, the chiyuv Haraya is if someone did not and will not have the mitzvah this night. Therefore, our women and daughters have no chiyuv Haraya. But the Mordechai and Reish Samach Zayin, and Masechta Shabbos, says no. If someone will have Ner Chanukah later, fine. If someone will be yaitz in their Chanukah later, let's say a woman is away, but she's not by her husband b'shas tadlaka, and she doesn't have birchas, the brachas by her husband, he's lighting and she's out in a hospital. Where's the birchas haraya? Zok the Bach, she is yaitz with the husband, ishtik gufi, the mitzvah lak is ner Chanukah. But what about the Indian of Haidal Anes? She didn't make the bracha shasanis mashachiyanu. So Zok the Mordechai, that if someone is with family and hears the brachas, you're okay. If someone is away from the home, even though they're yaitz in their Chanukah, they're not yaitz of the brachas. And there's so much so of a chiyuv, they have to go and look at Neiros and make two brachas the first night and one bracha all subsequent nights. Now the Shulchan Aruch and Tafresh Ayin involve Gimel passing like most Rishonim. If you will be yaitz mitzvah, that's enough. But in Tafresh Ayin Zayin Gimel, the Ramah quotes the sheet of the Mordechai. The Sharatzian says it's the Gra B'das Rashi, and I should mention the Magid Mishnah says that's the sheet of the Rambam, and the Sharatzian says this is a sheet that you have to reckon with. According to many Rishonim, if a person didn't hear the brachas that night, the wife is in the hospital, even though she's yaitz to the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah l'mahadrin, ishtik gufay, but you don't have brachas yet. So the Mishnah Berurah spells this out in Sifkat and Tezayin, that l'maisa, if it comes to that, don't make the brachas. Because Rav Shainim hold that brachas haraya does not apply if you have a mitzvah on your record. But the Pais can point out that's why there's an inyan to try to avoid this question. And therefore, if you're yaitz with your husband, be there with your husband to hear the brachas. Now, if the wife is in the hospital and she can't be home, so you'll rely on the ikad din that there's no brachas haraya because she was yaitz. Now it could be, in this scenario, the wife's in the hospital, and no one's lighting Ner Chanukah in the hospital that night. Maybe you'll listen on the telephone. Even though we have spoken about this in the past, over telephone you're not yoitze any mitzvah, any brachas, any mitzvahs according to most shitas. But Lamaisa the Chazon Ish was maker, or Moshe was maker. Maybe in this case you could rely on those shitas. But what? Amen's another issue. That's a question of us saying Amen. But one thing I will say, if anybody in the hospital, or wherever she's staying in the convalescent home, is lighting their Chanukah, and it's possible to go and hear those brachas, then you're zicha yoitze. The brachas already doesn't have to be to hear the brachas that you're being yoitze this Ner Chanukah with. There are two mitzvahs. The brachas the Ner Chanukah, you're yoitze, and hear brachas. Of course, here I mean hear the other one, and have a mind to be yoitze with that. So when any time that a person, even though they yoitze the mitzvah, it's kedai to try to hear brachas. The same is true, a girl, Lamashal, is away, she has the chiyuv of hearing, the chiyuv according to some of hearing Birchas Harayah. The next question is a trickier question. The wife is supposed to be home, she calls up, I'm running late, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm not going to be home for another hour. You do what you want, but I'm not be home for another hour. And he's ready waiting, it's this man. Or someone asked me, his daughter has choir practice. Should she make an extra effort to be home, or be yaitz with the father? So there's no doubt about it, there is, both of them, wherever they are yaitz a long distance. That's basically our sugya of ner issue basin. There's the other fact of haraya. So basically, if the wife will come home and will not have ner Chanukah a whole night, will not see her brachas, she has this question. But the husband should know there's a different factor, and that is we call shalom bayis. If the wife says, I want you to wait for me, so you wait for her. There's a famous story. Chavetz Chaim went to watch his Rebbe Rav Nachum light Ner Chanukah, and he got by this man, and he wasn't lighting, and he was waiting, and the Chavetz Chaim was surprised, he's missing this man, and he missed his man, his man. A while later, the Rebbetzin came home, and Rav Nachum could lit. So after, the next time he met his Rebbe Rav Nachum said, you're probably wondering, why did I not light Bisman? There's no chiyuv, the wife should be there. So he said, I made a pashta cheshbon. The Gemara says, and that's why we paskin, if a person has only one ner, Erev Shabbos Chanukah, and ner Chanukah and ner Shabbos, we would definitely say, ner Chanukah is first, Pasumei Nisa. But the Gemara says ner Shabbos is first. Why? Al Shalom Bayis. So Rav Nachum made a cheshbon. Look at Shalom Bayis, how important it is. It's even doicha, entirely ner Chanukah. So certainly it's doicha to light Bisman. So I made that cheshbon, so I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but that's what I did. And that's not just a sheina ma'isa, that's an halacha. Shalom bayis outweighs ner Chanukah Bisman. So if the wife says, listen, you're the paisik, you do what you want, I can't be on for another hour. You want to light? It's up to you. Then you make a decision and keep in mind shalom bayis. But if your wife says, you wait for me, then don't make a decision and keep shalom bayis. Now, what the wife will do when she gets home, that's an issue. If any of the neighbors, anybody are making a bracha when she gets home, she could just hear the brachas. Again, you don't have to connect the brachas to this hadlaka. You have to have an hadlaka and brachas. Now again, if she missed brachas, so halacha, it's not ma'akiv. We said it's not ma'akiv for sure. But more than that, mi'ikad din, there's no chiyuv of making brachas in that case. Now, the question is what the other child, this person asked me, his daughter has choir practice. So I told him this needs a chinuch. Now, whether in your mind choir practice is daicha this or not, that's up to you. But you and your daughter have to sit down and make a decision. This is not dvarim shel ma'abakach. This is a mitzvah of ner Chanukah, and ner ishu beisa. It's a family mitzvah. So whatever you decide is fine. But I think this should be a decision. The daughter should not just say, "I'm coming home 10 o'clock. I have the choir practice." You make a decision and use mishkal hachasidus. But there should be a decision. That's the chinuch to make decisions. Another point I wanted to mention. I think it's somewhat of an oversight. When the wife is home and the daughters are home, and they're busy making the suda, and the husband says, I'm starting to light. Okay, good, I'll be there. So the husband takes that literally, she'll be there, and he makes the brachas. As soon as she finishes the brachas, she comes darting in, Baruch Hashem, she made it just for the hadlaka, and she watches the husband, and she sees in him, mamash the aragonas, like there's no tomorrow. Fine. But lamaisa, ikachasim and asefa. In this scenario, she saw the adlaka, but she missed the brachas. So here you have a scenario home, but you don't hear the brachas. So if you hear from the kitchen, and every word, and you could say, so then, kishamei ka'ina. But it's important that when they're home, they should be there for the brachas more than the hadlaka. The Marketzi and Tafresh Ayin Beis in a different context, albeit. But he says, Vadai, the bracha is ma'akiv by Ner Chanukah, because the ikka is pesumei nisa, and if you mad without a bracha, loimidi ovid. She's talking about a different scenario, but basically, as far as we're concerned, the women and daughters have a sort of a chiyuv to hear the brachas. Now, I can't say chiyuv because we paskin that you don't make a brachas haraya, but definitely the husband that wants to do things right, tell them we're starting, wait till they get there for the brachas, and then in their presence begin the brachas. The question that we began, the almana, the neighbor that wants to come up and hear the hadlakas ner Chanukah, unfortunately she's not yoitza. You could hear Havdalah, and it's fine, but ner Chanukah is a ner issue basic. And presumably, it won't even help Mishtatev Bepruta, because she's not an achsanai, she's not part of this family. So you tell her gently but clearly, there's nothing wrong with you like yourself. Again, Havdalah is one issue that, they're so worried about drinking the wine of Havdalah, that's most of a haylach, that fear, that aversion. But there's nothing wrong with an Isha making her own bracha, and that's the right way to do it. The question that bacha asked, his grandmother told him, I'm not lighting. I told him, she said, I'm not lighting, so that's it, don't push. So what do? She's not lighting, and she's not by you. So there's another feature of Ner Chanukah that a shliach works. Now this is a whole sugya for itself, but for matzah you can't appoint a shliach to light, to eat. But that's the uniqueness of Ner Chanukah and Ner Ishu Basic. So the Paiskim say that if someone cannot light, let's say an almana feels she's not lighting b'shemoifen, and it's his grandmother, it's a chi of kibbutz, or a person that's on bed and can't get out of bed, so you appoint the shliach, and the shliach lights in his behalf. Who makes the bracha in this scenario? So, versteht who's doing the ma'aseh mitzvah? The grandson. So the grandson makes the brachas. Now the question: he gets home, can he make brachas again? The answer is absolutely. In this house, he was not yoitza. This is not his bias. So he was not yoitza. He was just doing it for the mishaleach. So then the grandmother was yoitza, and then he can make the brachas at home. Consider the next question, but I urge you to think because it has a tricky twist to it. The husband is out of town. He's not coming home tonight. So the wife does not want to stay home alone. She goes to her parents. Does she, Allah, have a chiyuv to light? Or, let's fakir it. But all these cases come up. Good news, the wife had a baby. She's in the hospital. So he's not staying home alone with his four walls. He's his first child. He goes to his parents. He lives in Lakewood. He's coming to Brooklyn to be with his parents for a day or two. The question is, she in the hospital, does she have any more chiyuv to light? So you're probably wondering, what's the shaila? We just said, ishtay kegufay, right? But here we come to a very crucial point that has to be clarified. Yes, of course, ishtay kegufay works both ways. If the wife lights, the husband's yaitza. If the husband lights, the wife is yaitza. So, what's the problem? If he's out of town, why can she be yaitza? Or better yet, if he's flying someplace, he can be yaitza with his wife, right? But says Rabbi Zalman Alicha Shloima in Yud Gimel, and actually you look at the Leket Yoish Chanukah Tezayin, it's Kemat Mefurish like Rabbi Zalman. The Chiddush of Ner Ishu Beisai of Ishtek Gufay is part of Beisai. And in all these scenarios, the one that's lighting is not in home turf. He's not home. What was the first story? The husband's out of town, and she went to her parents. No. He's lighting not in Beisai. How could his lighting chutz l'Beisai patahar? Or the second case, she's in the hospital, and he's by his parents. Right? He's not in Beisai. Maybe Ner Isha Beisai works when it's in Beisai. You'll say, so what's the problem? Why can he be yaitza with his parents? Why can she be yaitza, in the first case, with her parents? Right? She went to her parents, because he's out of town. The teretz is, she got married, she changed her name, she's under new management, she's not part of that B'nai Bayis. She doesn't live there except for 1 or 2 nights. Even if the parents support her, but that's not the halacha dikka saimach al shulchanai. So here we have a scenario, the husband is out of town and lighting. She's by her parents. She's not yaitza with her parents, and according to Shlomo Zalman, she's not yaitza with her husband. So it's not the end of the world. She could be mishtatev b'priti, because she is an achsanoi for these day or two, or the father give her a gift. You want to say it's understood. But the point is, when a person is not home, this magical long-distance ishta gufa does not work. Now, the emes is, I saw other poskim argue, I saw Shmuel Kamenetsky in the Seif, and it's very mustafa what he says. The chiddush of ishta gufa is a relationship. It is that a husband and a wife are one. Rabbi Zev and his wife are one. So who said it has to be, and when you're starting in headquarters at home? Grab the Rabbi Zev's case was very good, because she was home. But this is what some poskim say the ikka is when they have that relationship. But since Rabbi Zalman says this, and the Leket Yosha says the Kamat Mefurish, I should mention that even though Ishtei Kegufay works, but it's questionable when the husband is not at home base, does it work? And I'll give you some examples. He's out of town in business, so she should try to light, or B'yaitza. Loyalenu, if a husband is sitting Shiva, and Ner Chanukah lights in the base of, not in his own home, then his wife has to light at home, or children have to light. Or, I saw this interesting shaila, those rebbes that light in Beis Medrash, and they don't live there. They have their home, they just light in Beis Medrash, so their family would have to light independently. Now, when we say the family, I don't mean necessarily the mother has to light. We'll soon see when you have a mother and a son, so probably the son should light. And the son also affects the Ner Ishu Beisai, that the entire family is Yaitz. Another question that I saw, let's say the entire family gets in a van, they come for Shabbos from Lakewood to Brooklyn. So, typically, in that family, only the father and the sons, the women and the girls do not light. So now they start scratching their head, wait a minute, we're not home, we're by my parents. Is the wife and daughter's Yaitza with the husband's adlaka, with the father's adlaka? What's the problem? Because they're not home. How does it work? Ishtei Kegufay. Zokter Shleim Bezalman, the same shtickle. No. When they're separate, he's there and she's there, and you want to make a long distance, Ishtei Kegufay doesn't go. But when they're all together, when they're all by someone else's home, then if they're all there, he lights and he's mitzi his wife and his daughters. We had a question where a grandmother, in other words, the young man, they asked me his mother, who was the grandmother of the children, are very nervous, so many neighbors. She said, do me a favor, when you come for Shabbos, you could come and only Bar Mitzvah boys light. It happens to be he had like 6 boys under Bar Mitzvah and no boys over Bar Mitzvah. So it was a very convenient way of saying, just you light and know that not the children. She was too nervous about all these adlokis. So again, here we have a pashat halacha. Mi'ikad din, the father lights, as might see his sons. At home they are mahadin and each boy lights. But if your mother tells you there's no lighting, so you be mahadin kibarav, and you go back to din hagemara, and you do like Svaden do for Dairis, you'll be yaitza the ikadin. When there's a situation that the husband, for whatever reason, is not home, he's in Eretz Yisrael, he's out of town, or there is no husband, there's a mother and sons. So obviously someone has to light. Who lights, the mother or the bar mitzvah boy, the gadol boy, in this scenario? So Abshtein Bezalman in Yud Gimel Ha'ora 19, based on a Taz in the beginning of Tafra Zayin Zayin, I saw other places say this as well, that in this case the son should light. Even though Lamaisa, the woman is more of the Rosh Habayis, but you don't need a Rosh Habayis to light, and apparently, usually we have men being Moitzi women and not Fakir. So in a case when you have a boy, a Gadol Halacha, the son, not the mother, should light. I should mention, which is Pashit, when you have a family, father, mother, and son, La Halacha, if the son lights, if he's a Gadol that is, he can be Moitzi father and mother. The original din of Ner Ishu Beisai does not demand only fathers or only mothers, because we saw fathers are good and mothers are good. So once fathers and mothers are good, it's understandable that even a son can be Moitzi the parents. The Ikka mitzvah of Ner Ishu Beisai is one Ner Echad L'chol B'nei Abayis, like Rashi says. So that could be done by the father, mother, or a son. We had a question, the husband is going to be very late, and she's waiting for the husband. But he's coming home 11 o'clock, and she has young children, and she's also hungry. They want to have a Suda. They can't wait till 11 o'clock for the Suda. But you don't eat before Ner Chanukah. So the wife has, the mother has an eitzah. They'll go to their downstairs neighbor and they'll watch the hadlaka. So the answer is that's a wonderful idea, to bring the Chanukah spirit, but you're not yotzeh by watching the neighbors. That's not part of you're not yotzeh to mitzvah. So the eitzah is, we'll rely on the B'tzei Lachach Chelik Dalet Nun Ches, who explains that the issa of eating before hadlaka is if you're doing it, then you can't eat. Even though the mitzvah is on the mother and sons, just like the father. But who is performing the mitzvah? The father. He shouldn't eat. And where this comes to an incredible nafkamina, when someone asked me this question, he was making a bris, Shabbos bris, and in the shul before the bris there was a kiddush that, when the Rav was making kiddush, he couldn't leave before the kiddush. So he had a kiddush before his son's bris. Is he allowed to eat by the kiddush? He said it was a very good kiddush, he didn't want to miss it, Hashem Shemayim of course, but can you eat before bris? So really the say in B'tzei L'Chachma, and that tshuva says that the issa of eating before the milah is on the moil. The Aviyah Ben is not doing the milah. The issa of eating is more on the one that's performing the mitzvah, not necessarily on the one that is mechayiv in the mitzvah. So again, the Chatchila, we try, no one should eat before Ner Chanukah, but in such extenuating circumstances, we'll rely on that B'tzei L'Chachma. Part 2 is the husband and his hadlaka. So basically, we have to remember, we as husbands and fathers, it's not just my mitzvah, like, I pay the bills and I light Chanukah. I am performing on behalf of the family. Make sure that the wives and daughters are there for the bracha. And it's also kedai to have them in mind to be yaitza, even though it's probably understood, but Gabi the brachas, we want to make that they should have birchas haraya. So we include them in the mitzvah. And then they are fully included in the mitzvah. A man, le'aleinu, who can't light, he's in the hospital and he can't light, or he has a flight, he's leaving early and landing at Yisrael the next day, so he should not be distraught. He has Rabbi Zev eitzah. Rabbi Zev did not light, his wife lit for him. So here in this scenario, we'll tell him it's not a consolation prize, it's ishtoi kigufoi, it's as if he lit. And to taka the second night, when he lights, he will light without a shechianu. That's how far we're going with this ishtoi kigufoi. In both cases, when this man who can't light and is being yoyt with his wife, when possible, he should try to hear the brachas from someone else. To be yoyt to the sheet that a birchas haraya is a chiyah for him. But if he can't find the brachas, mi'ikad the din, birchas haraya does not apply to him, since he was yoytza with ishtoi kigufoi. Now, an interesting question, which is also to mention, is if the husband is away in a hotel and his wife is lighting at home. So the Chayvas Hadar also in Sifkat Lambates develops the Yisai that if he has his own bias, he's paying rent, so he has a new Chayvas HaBayis. It's not just an Achsanoi. If he has his own bias, then he certainly should light on his own and not be yoytzu with his wife. That's Pashut, because a new bias, like in their Shabbos, is also a new bias as a new Chiv. A common question, the husband comes home very late. Let's say in the previous case. So the wife decides, you know what, I'm going to light first. And the husband says, fine, whatever you want, it's better for the children. No, the children go to sleep without seeing their Chanukah, there's something lacking. So the husband says, it's really fine, I'll be home late tonight, 11 o'clock. You light with the children, and I'll come and I'll light. Is that so pashut? L'chayra, what's the shayla? Enechanami, the bias was yaitz and the children were yaitza, but he could be mahadrin. Zok the marshal in Simon Pei, and he says it very emphatically, that's not true. If the wife lit, then ishle kegufot. And even having kavana hafucha does not help. It's not a joke. This is ishle kegufot. I'll give an example. You say, I'm lighting with my right hand, but I don't want pot to my left hand, so I can light again. Doesn't work. Zok the marshal, after the wife lit, the husband cannot light, even if he had das, not to be yaitz with her. That's how much Ishlik Gufay works like the Marshal. And here's where the El Yerabba says the Marshal holds Ishlik Gufay is literally, and that muscle we gave is left hand and right hand. And maybe the Raya would be from Rabbi Zev. Rabbi Zev was a Mahajin more than we are. Why didn't he light afterwards? It's true his wife was yaitz with his wife. Could be Taki held like the Marshal. Once the wife lit, you can't light. Why didn't he light instead of his wife? Because she was home and he wasn't. Now, this I must say is a chiddush. The Trumas Hadeshin in Kuf Aleph and the Shulchan Aruch in Tafresh Ayin Zayin Gimel, the Magen Avram, Mishnah Berurah, all there say that most poskim do not go with this marshal because Ishtika Gufa is an option. It doesn't happen automatically. Kavana Afucha helps for everything else. Why not this? So, Lamaisa, the Ramah Paskins, not like the marshal, if the wife lit and she had in mind not to be yaitza to the husband had in mind not to be yaitza, avada he could light afterwards. But the poskim do say it's kedai to avoid this confrontation. According to the marshal, for the husband to light after his wife lit is a bracha levatala. Now, how do you avoid this confrontation? I'll tell you a very simple answer. If the wife is home with the children and there's one bar mitzvah boy there, let the bar mitzvah boy light and be moitzi the family. What do you gain? Because then the father comes home, he could light l'chol hadayis. Why? There's ishtei kegufay, but there's not b'nai kegufay. So in such a scenario, it would be an eitzah, let the son light, and son bar mitzvah, and he'll pat to his mother. This, we have another situation. Let's say she's home, and she's lighting for the family. He's away, and he wants to light also. Any problem? That she's staying in the house, and he's staying by relatives and a chasana out of town. So he could light mahajin, right? According to the marshal, you have a problem. She was yaitza with the wife, just like Abzera. And this is long distance, true, but don't forget, at least the wife's at a home turf. She's in Beisa. According to marshal, he can't light later. But for this, there's a simple eitzah. And that is called coordination. Tell the wife, I'm lighting at my time, whatever time you decide, be'itay v'zmanay, and you light afterwards. Once he lit in the bayis, where he is, he's yaitza, but she's not yaitza. According to the marshal, why? Because he's not in Beisay. Then she could light whenever she wants. So you coordinate the time, lamaisa, that's the yaitza. If it comes to it that the wife lit and the husband is all upset, I'm not lighting tonight, so the ikadadin, we passed in the loika marshal, he could light after her. This is good when the husband lights for another reason, because if he doesn't light at all that night, and he didn't have Birchas Haraya, he runs into that Birchas Haraya problem. As far as our sons are concerned, basically, it's our Ramah, the minig of Svardim Ad Hayoim, that only the father lights. I know Svardim Shebachim, that in their lives never lit Ner Chanukah. That's Pashit, simple, Svardim Shemenhagim. The Ashkenazim, each son lights. I should mention the Magen Avram, Mishnah Berurah, in the beginning of Tafresh Ayin Zayin, says when the boys go to learn out of town, they leave their home, they are no longer B'nai Beisai. Now, not that you put them up for adoption, they're still part of the family, but they're not B'nai Beisai. They have a chiyuv, they have no chiyuv, but they will light in the yeshiva by, at least certainly by Ashkenazim. But when they're away from home, they are no longer part of the immediate B'nai Beisai. If the boy goes to learn, comes home at night, comes home for Shabbos, then probably he retains his citizenship in the house, he's still part of B'nai Beisai, but certainly, Ikadadin, when he's away from home, he's no longer part of B'nai Beisai. We had a question when someone had a niece from Eretz Yisrael staying by his house and she's in seminary. That would be part of B'nai Beisai. She's staying by his house for an extended period of time, she's not paying rent, she doesn't have her own basement, part of the family, she's yaitza with the B'nai Beisai. Similarly, a mashulach that stays in someone's house and he's not charging and he's part of the household is also considered b'nei beisai, not just achsanoi. Achsanoi means a guest that comes and goes. But someone that's there, and the definition of a b'nei beisai is he's staying there for an extended period of time and he's not paying rent, he doesn't have his own apartment. A mashulach, if it's that long, or a seminary girl, would be part of b'nei beisai. Avshtein Bezalman, and you see this, his sensitivity in Halicha Shleim Yud Gimel Hara 23, he issued a psag for during a war. Many Svardish Shebachim had to be in the front lines during Chanukah. So he told them that since the parents are lighting for them, they don't have to worry about their Chanukah. They yaitza with their parents. So apparently they weren't they didn't leave to go for weeks and weeks. They went for a few days, whatever it was. They were still part of B'nai Bayis, and they were yaitza with the parents. But then he said, and you see his sensitivity to his responsibilities, He said he has to be mefarsim in the newspapers that he meant only Svardish Bachim literally. For an Ashkenazi Bacha that left his home for a few days, he has an inyan of Mahajin. If he could work out a Mahajin lighting on the front lines, Tavalah Bracha. But that would be the original Yisaid. A Bacha is Yaitzu with the father, but he still has a din of Mahajin. We heard a question, the son is home before the father. The father's come home from work late, but the boy is learning in yeshiva, like Rabbi Yisoi say, Ein lecha ben chayil misha oisik batayra. He gets off from yeshiva, he can stay by the bris till benching, he could go to the chasanas. He has time. But the question is, should the son wait for the father to light? Now is his man. The father's coming home 7, 8, 9 o'clock. So, mi'ikad the din, the son could light before the father. There's no ikuv. And even if the son does light, the father doesn't have a shayla that he could light. Some fathers feel that it's not right, they should light together. So Rapam Zechon Baruch told me to say this, that if the father is makpid, that he wants the boys to light together, they should wait, even if it means waiting too much later. But the father should know that there's nothing wrong with the son lighting earlier. And if he wants to know what's the right thing, let the son at least be zaycha to the mitzvah bizman. Now, someone had a ha'ara that if the son lights first, enechanami, the father could light afterwards, b'li safik. But then it comes out that the father is like only mahajin. When he lit first, he became the mitzvah. Now, when the father lights, he becomes the mahajin. It's like, the fifth wheel. That doesn't seem to be correct. First of all, no one gave him the rights to be the ikka mitzvah. No one's asking him. He's just doing his hidden mitzvah. So if the father allows the son to light, the son could light. Otherwise, let him wait patiently for the father to come home. We have an old minig before Yom Tov. If you like to give some food of thought, Zevach Mishpacha, I'd like to share with you a few ha'aris. I hope you'll enjoy as much as I do. Tein l'chacham v'yechkamait. Each one could be a discussion by a table, each one for itself. There's a very common scenario. Typically the working person does not get home bizman. Now, whatever your zman is, but beyond 6:30 already is not the preferred zman, the hiddur zman. The question comes up that the wife and sons are home by the zman. Again, I'm leaving that very politically correct. Whatever your zman is, the wife and sons are home bizman. The husband comes home 7, 8, 9, even 10 o'clock. So there's a big discussion, the paiskim, which we discussed another time. Maybe the husband should appoint a shliach to light in his house for him. What do you mean? Because you have the mitzvah of lighting bizman. Shliach k'moisei. Why not? The teretz is that mitzvah b'yoysim b'shluchay. But I should tell you, there are poskim that hold that hiddur mitzvah outweighs mitzvah ba. You're doing shliach to have the hiddur mitzvah. I know people that follow this psak, but I think most don't. Why? Because if enechanam, if the shliach lights for you on your epoch, you get an A+ for bizman, but you don't get an A++ because it was a mitzvah boy. So the question is, which hiddur would you like? Mitzvah boy, myself, or bizman? So that's that question. But after learning today's sugya, I'd like to present a different option, and that is let the wife light bizman. Then you get an A++ l'chayr. Why? Bizman, that's you adlaka, and plus because of mitzvah, ishtek gufa, mitzvah boy. So I'm not suggesting this because no one's listening. I have to do this. But I know some people that do this. The question is, why don't most think of this eitzah? Why don't we do this? So it could be, when he gets home, he's not going to be able to light, because he was yaitza with his wife. So what's going to be Birchas Haraya? He's going to go shopping around for Birchas Haraya. You can look for a Shabbos go, you can't look for Haraya. You have to get a ner. Plus, I mentioned earlier, the Aruch HaShulchan says that Ishtei Kegufay is even mitzvah boy. But he does mention that the Magen Avram and Sifkat and Zayin has a question about that. So maybe like the Magen Avram that we don't see Ishtei Kegufay legabi mitzvah boy. Maybe Taka, he says, I want to go with mitzvah boy beyond his man, but even if it's too late. And he'll throw in that today we light inside, maybe it's not such a big hiddur. But I'd love to hear about this ha'ara. Is it true that when a wife lights, he has the mitzvah boy yoisim b'shluchay also? But one thing someone told me, which he's making a mistake, what he does is he tells his wife to light bizman, and when he gets home he lights again. Now that he's missing the boat for two reasons. Light the marshal, he's making a bracha levatala, but more so, he didn't get the credit of with his wife's lighting if he lights afterwards. his report card is going to be erased. First you got an A++, and then you got erased because you decided not to be Yaitza. So make up your mind. You can't do both. But certainly we have this idea, think about it, and why it's not done, think about it, and maybe tell me maybe if there's more that I'm missing. Next question. The person has a late flight on light of Chanukah. The best scenario is getting home 11, 12, but if there's any delay, it's going to be 2 or 3. He's afraid that he's possibly going to miss the Hadlakos Ner Chanukah. So he had a very aggressive eight. He'll tell his wife, you light Bisman, so we'll get the A+. If I come home in a timely fashion, then I want to light again. Oh. So here, this doesn't seem right. What do you mean? Make up your mind. Who are you being Yaitza with? But this is something we discussed right after Pesach last year, that according to many, many poskim, you could do a mitzvah b'tanai. Das heißt, if you're davening Ma'ariv during Yemei HaSfira, during Ben HaShmoshes, and the tzibah's counting, says the Shulchan Aruch in Tav Pei Tes, you could count with them below bracha and make it tonight. If I'll remember later to say tzvi with the bracha, I want to discard what I said and be yaitza with the bracha. If I forget to count later, I want to be yaitza what I did earlier. There, you're taking the liberty of making a bracha later by canceling your previous mitzvah. So if Tanai works for Svira, that's why the Mechaber Paskin, and many Paskin Paskin, why shouldn't it work regarding Ner Chanukah? And I believe that's true. You're not making a bracha early twice. You're being yaitz with your wife once, and then you could either choose take it or leave it. So for those that hold that Tanai works, I believe this would be a good eitz. Now the Birchas Habayis and the Chanukah l'Shitosei, that doesn't work for mitzvahs, he says Chanukah won't work. But if you hold it helps for Sfira, it should help for Ner Chanukah. If I'm wrong, please tell me. Question I had in the yeshiva from a bacha. He wanted to be yaitza. His man is as late as man, but he wanted to be yaitza the earliest man. So he gave a bacha a pruta and said, "I'm part of your hadlaka." And when the latest man came, he lit again to light bisman. I told him that's no good. No, you can't do that because you can't be yaitza twice. You could, if you do like everybody else does, light once and don't be so firm. That's what I should have told him. I said, if you want to do that, you could be yaitza, give a pruta to be yaitza with the first person bisman, and then later light again without a bracha. But to go make light again with a bracha after the yaitza first time, you're stuck. You only have one. You can't have two. So that's misusing the Tanai. Question: supposed to be a Ma'aser Shehaya. There was a Sfardische family, and only one lit. And for some reason, it was an oversight. Only the son Shaloi that was Higia L'Chenech, but not Bar Mitzvah. Only the not Bar Mitzvah boy lit. And the night was already over. The question is the rest of the family yaitza with a cotton Shegia L'Chenech's hadlok? So to us, this sounds unreasonable. The Mechaber says in Tov Reish Pei Tes Beis, to be yaitza Megillah, you have to hear Megillah from a Gadol. So Chanukah is no different. They're both Rabbanan, but how can Chanukah be different? Zokti Chacham Tzvi and the Haisafas Yud Gimel. Tvar Masuka Midvash. He has this very shaila. And his Lashon, Kivna the Lab, Akakafta the Gavra Mutal Achiyav, Ela Echad Mikol Bnei Abayis Madlik. Since the mitzvah is on the bayis, and this bayis has a qualified Hadlakas Ner Chanukah of a cotton Higia L'Chenech, the entire family was yaitza. Regarding Megillah, that you have to have Shemeya Ka'ina, so you have to have a constant connection. That's what I think he means to say. You have to have a constant connection to the Moitzi, and he's a Katan, so you can't be yaitza. But Ner Chanukah is one Ner Chanukah per household. That suffices even a Katan Shegia L'Chinuch. Chanukah is, there has to be a kosher hadlaka on my bayit, which I have. I'll say, if so, even the baby, or even a goy lahavdo, there's not a mais hadlaka. But I can't say all agree. The Ramah is choishes l'chumra in this very case in Tafresh Ayin Hey. But you have a Chacham Tzvi that a chayvas habayis has a very prominent role. I saw a fascinating ha'ara. Should not be negeya, but someone's doing an oin and lo yaleinu on their Chanukah during the night of Chanukah. So his wife lit. Was he yaitzu with that? Lamashal, let's say the kfur was at night. Does he have to light after the kfura, or was he yaitzu with his wife? So to us, this is not a shaila, because an oinen that hears Avdallah is not yaitz even with the Yevet. He's not mechuyev in mitzvahs. Zogt am Nissen Karels and Chut Hashani Hilchas Chanukah a mavel de Gechidish. Havdalah, you have to have a participation of the Einim, which you can't have. But Ner Chanukah, as long as you have the lock in the bias, and he's part of the bias, you don't have to have him doing anything. He's not a bar chiyuv, or who cares? As long as he's part of the bias. And Achron Chava, let me leave you with a shaila to think about a riddle. How is it possible to be Yaitza Ner Chanukah an hour ago? 10 o'clock a.m. Now, you could be Yaitza coming to the shir at 10 o'clock, but you can't be Yaitza Ner Chanukah, Chav Dalid, Kislev, right? But I'll tell you, it's a pasha idea. There's a couple living in Eretz Yisrael, and they Baruch Hashem had an Einikel born, so his wife flew to America to be with their daughter and child. The wife is here in America at 10 o'clock Sunday morning. The husband calls on his phone, I'm about to light Chanukah Licht, I want you to know, I'm lighting Chanukah Licht, Afreidlich and Chanukah. She says, wait a second, can I be Yaitza with you? You're wondering, this is bizarre? Why is it bizarre? Since the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is Ner Ishu Beisai, on her bias, on Chanukah, there's Adlakas Nerais, why can you be Yaitza? Why is it so bizarre? So, to be Yaitza Birchas HaRaya, you can't, over the phone, Pashtas, but why can you be Yaitza the mitzvah? Not over the phone, Yaitza long distance. You want to bring a raya from Rabbi Zev, so it's not fair to bring a raya from Rabbi Zev, because who said he was in a different time zone? But in the time zones of Shleim Bezalman, it's not a problem. Now, many poskim question this, Yashiv certainly questioned this, but you're not a Bar Chiyuva yet. But at least something to think about, that here's a riddle, you could be Yaitza, Chavdala, the Ikv, you have a Freilich, and Kasher Chanukah.
I'd like to thank Rabbi Smith for the wonderful share. Rabbi said, give me a minute. In a few hours from now, we're all going to say, Shechiyonu v'kimonu v'gyonu l'zman hazeh. We're all going to say, She'osin isim la'viseinu, we'll ask Hashem that it should be v'yom mehem b'zman hazeh. What's the main thing of Ner Isha Beisai, to put on the left of Chanukah? To tzint Klal Yisrael. This week, Klal Yisrael made an appeal for Yad Yisrael, which had thousands of kids from Kiev given out all over the world, Yiddish mishpachas. You're going to go in a few hours to Lechter, you're going to say, Baruch Hashem, give me light, give me Havalibonim Talmidei Chacham, give me good kids, give me good Einikelach. There's no biggest chus by helping out the Yad Yisrael through the Moises of Kallenstone to give out for these kinderlach. There are thousands of kids that want to learn Yiddishkeit, they want to know Torah mitzvahs, but we don't have sponsors for them. Please write out checks to Yad Yisrael or give out your credit card. It will be a tremendous chizik for Klal Yisrael right now before the Chanukah Licht. Tizkir mitzvahs. Reb Chaim Nakasha Marot Kodesh Baruch Lazak Yisrael Lefigi Ribbenim Torah mitzvah Shneim Al Nechofas Aman Tzidkoi Yagdil Torah V'Yadeh Kaddish. Amen. Tizkir mitzvah, make checks to Yad Yisrael. Freilich Chanukah, Freilich Chanukah. Rabbi said, give out your checks and credit cards right before Chanukah. Rabbi said, it's a großes Gule. Vergiss die Kinder. Steht nicht so der Scheuch Avoide. Wir geben Geld, Rabbi said. Da ich dem Schluft noch, Rabbi said. Darf ich aufwecken? Kind Chanukah, nu.
That is precisely it. Why is it not? No one can.
She is home.
He wants to make a step. No, how could
She is home.
the husband Zev was away.
So what?
He's got the 3 months. Why is a sad book like this?
This case is the opposite way. The husband belongs to the wife. But she is more to him. If it's one thing, the other thing is where he is.
They say is that's inseparable. Listen, they say is inseparable. The wife is like the husband. Ishtay, basically Ishtay.
But they says a different club. It doesn't matter. If you go to a hotel, you have to pay the hotel room, right? Yeah, but if your wife, if his wife is home, then you still have to pay the lights. It's literal. It's literal.
What's based on? You tell me, what's based on?
He's saying, but I have a lot of stops to do. I don't think I could take him home. Where do you have to go?
1349.
Yeah, so I have to stop first here, then on 43rd, then on 46th,
Your wife has a headache, you got a headache. I'll teach
Okay, let's go, guys.
What's the deal?
Okay, both sides.
And if I don't make it, I'm not going to be
No, nobody is considered a guest. But you're all still invited to the Sikkim of Smith's share. Take place right now, just for a few more minutes.
Just a short summary we learned today, Bez Hashem, we definitely saw a mitzvah chaviva ad ma'oi, like the Rambam says, it's a unique mitzvah, a mitzvah maybe that's unparalleled in halacha. Each yachid is definitely chayiv. There's nothing to talk about. It's a chayivas haguf in a certain sense, like matzah. Everybody has a chayiv, but there's also this approach of ner ishu beisa. It's a beisa dika mitzvah that if any of the family members, the father, mother, or son light, the entire family that are there are yaitza with the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. Svardim continue that, and they have a different taich and hider. Of course, Svardim Amma Hader, a different taich of hider, and only the father lights, and the Svardim Shabachim, and certainly girls, do not light. Ashkenazim have somewhat of a division that the sons do light, the wife doesn't light, and girls, single girls lighting is Talim and Hagim. But there we see the uniqueness of the mitzvah Ner Chanukah. It's a mitzvah of Ner Ish Ubeisai, Beisai Zu Ishtai, which is really the concept of Ishtai Kegufai, and then there's Beisai, B'nai Beisai, that includes anybody that's part of his household. A guest, an Achsanoi, even though he's eating supper there, is not part of his B'nai Beisai. He could be Yaitz Ner Shabbos with the Hadlakas Ner Shabbos of the Balas Habayis, but he can't be Yaitz Ner Chanukah. He has an option of being mishtatif bepruta, and that makes him into a b'nei bayis. The real chiddush is Rabbi Zev's long distance being yaitza, that his wife lights, even though he was learning in yeshiva, he was an achsanoi who had his own chiyuv, he was yaitza ishtei kegufay, that according to many paiskim is even mitzvah boy, as if he did it himself. A woman has, again, the same chiyuv like a man, she's yaitza with her husband, and single girls should have mahadrin, but we said either, like the Chassam Sofer says, the hiddush should be in tznius, or the girls that do light, the single girls that do light at home should do it, but oif and sanua, and then they have their hiddur. A wife should not light after the husband lights. It's a bracha levatala, and not to have a mind not to be yaitza. Let's keep it as the minik fadeiris. The husband lights includes the wife. Als ishtek agufay. She's not being deprived. She's not a second-class citizen. She's yaitza the ikka mitzvah. The wife is away. She's yaitza with the husband. If possible, to hear Birchas Haraya, that's an independent mitzvah. I can't say it's a chiyah because we paskin if she's yaitz with the husband, there's no chiyah, but it's kedai to hear Birchas Haraya. If she didn't hear Birchas Haraya, and she doesn't say Birchas Haraya, she's yaitz is certainly the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. It's kedai to wait for the wife and daughter to come home. Better yet, they should be home bisman, so you could do the optimum zman. If lamaisa, they're going to be late, and they tell you not to wait, and there won't be a shalom bayis issue, you could light bisman, and the wife and daughter should try to hear brachas from someone else. An almana, a neighbor, cannot be yaitza just by coming. They could be yaitza havdalah, but not ner Chanukah. The yaitza of shliach lighting, if in the case of a grandson light for the grandmother, he could light with the bracha by his grandmother, and then he goes home and lights his own chiyuv in his own house. It's an interesting question how ner ishu beisei works if you're not home, if the husband's lighting in a different place and the wife is not there. So some question if ner ishu beisei works if it's not beisei. When they're all together, even though they're not home, if they're all by their parents and he's lighting, then ner ishu beisei works because they're all together. But if the husband is out of town lighting, the wife, there is a good side, the wife is chayav to light because there's no ishu beisei when he is not lighting in his home. If the grandmother's nervous, not too many children should light, so you'll go back to the ikadin, the father lights, he might see all the boys. A mother and son, and the father's not there, the son, my mitzvah boy, Gadol, should light. If they want to eat, and the husband's coming home late, the mother and children could just eat, and rely that the ikka issa of eating before adlak is totally on the one that's actually doing the mitzvah. The husband should wait for the women, daughters and wife, to get there for the brach, is not just for the adlaka. but they should hear the brachas to be yaitza the birchas haraya. If he can't light, he's flying or in the hospital, he relies on his wife, and it's as good as Rabbi Zev, and that's certainly the ikka mitzvah with the mahadrin as well. According to the Mashal, after the wife lights, the husband cannot light, even if she had das not to be yaitzi him. Halacha will make him, but it's best to avoid such a confrontation. And therefore, if there's a wife and son at home, and the husband's going to be late, the son should light, not the wife. When he's away, he could light first, and then she lights afterwards at home, and there's no problem. A yeshiva bacha that goes away for an extended period of time is no longer b'nei beisai. If you have a niece or a mashulach staying in your house and you're not charging rent, they don't have their own apartment, then they are part of b'nei beisai. Of course, they have the option of mahadrin, but they have the status of b'nei beisai, and they're yoitzu with the original lighting. A son before the father, if the father's makbid, should wait for the father. If not, let him light before the father, and the father doesn't lose his status of ikka mitzvah. The isha, we had a question if the isha should light before the man when he's late. Maybe then he gets the full mitzvah. Maybe the mitzvah boy is mamish mekayim with the wife. We said you could be yaitz b'tanai and then light over afterwards. If the first time you didn't make a bracha, an oinen is a tzarachian. Could be he was yaitz with the wife's hadlaka. Hakatan shegiya lechinach. There's a tzad that the family is yaitza. And yes, it's possible to be yaitza on Chav Dalid Kislev if the wife is yaitza with the husband and she's an American, he's in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah.
My son lived in Slobodka.
Okay.
He said he was once in the traffic, got stuck in the traffic, he called his wife tonight.